Good afternoon, traders. You're watching Trading in the Matrix, episode number 11. This is a video series where I pick out a single stock, cryptocurrency, or currency pair and take a 5 to 10 minute analysis into that pair. Good morning, traders. You're watching Trading in the Matrix, episode number 12. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the cryptocurrencies as a whole. We're going to be looking at a few of the cryptocurrency pairs. This is something that I'd like to move into with the video series. Instead of picking out a single stock, cryptocurrency, or currency pair, if I see the potential of a specific movement, talking to last week's episode of US yen, instead of just looking at US yen, when the situation arises that there is a large move coming up, i.e. US yen's large move to the downside, I'm gonna actually be looking at all the correlating pairs and all those potential pairs that could move similarly. So this week, we're gonna start that kind of trend and we're gonna be looking at the cryptocurrencies. So first off, we'll start off with Bitcoin. We'll go to our weekly, ignore what I've got labeled out at the front at the moment. So just taking it all the way back to the basics of Elliott Wave, a lot of people were speculating that this isn't going to go up or there's more down. We picked it in my group from the start of that move, and I'll show you how we did that. But we'll get stuck into the analysis itself. So on a daily time frame, we obviously this large move that started that massive trend up, and a lot of people did get in, a lot of people did lose money on the cryptos. But following that, we've had this massive sideways correction, pulling back all the way down to about $3,000 from an original high of, of about nearly $20,000. I believe we can break that, and we will break that in the near future, and we'll discuss why that is. So if we're starting off here, we obviously had that impulse. This corrective pattern is very simply an ABC with some sideways that we've got over here. That's internal there. Following from that, we actually do have this nice break of the trend line, and I'll move down to a 4-hour time frame. Let me just get this. I'm not using my mouse there either. So obviously you can see from here, we've had this corrective structure come and play out before Bitcoin did break that trend line and begin to start moving up. From here, what we can see is a beautiful ABC pattern with the C wave having a WXYXZ on a smaller time frame. For me, this indicated the upside move that was going to start. So if I was to run through this, we had this impulse that broke the trend line. This is our corrective pattern from here. And what we should see from Bitcoin is a continuation to the upside in an impulsive manner, because that correction is now complete. How I was able to predict and what that actually looked like. So I'll just pop over to a chart that I posted on my trading view profile. I'll go to this here. Okay, awesome. So as you can see just by the heading, this was posted in January the 3rd. We're currently at the end of January over here, so about a month ago. BTC nearly ready for that time for the continued upside. The post was, if Bitcoin goes sideways from here and consolidates outside of this potential running flat, do not hesitate to go long. Pictured a couple of days later was an illustration of that 15-minute correction outside of that time frame where people should have been long. Just go back to the actual chart itself and click play. You can see the move from about $7,000 or $7,300 to its current at about $9,300. That happened within the space of, I'll just move over to the chart itself. Let me get this open. Here you go. That actual entire move happened in about that month. So within that month time frame, 26 days, we've had a $2,000 increase. So if you were able to purchase Bitcoin, or you did decide that was a good idea, congratulations, you've made some decent amount of money there. What we can see or expect to see in the coming weeks is we do have this to be potentially that first impulse up. We might see a deeper correction over here, especially after we have broken that trend line, but more continuation to the upside is almost guaranteed. Within this, if you are looking at the internals of this differently to IM, this is very simply our A wave up. This is our 1, 2, 3 for our B, and this is our impulsive C up from here with the WXYXZ coming down. So definitely more upside from here. If you are considering going long, there's a few options. You could go long now, or potentially you could wait a little bit while longer to get some more confirmation, or just to get some more sideways, so you're not caught into that sideways correction that could happen. Where your account will be in drawdown and things like that. Okay, that's all for Bitcoin. Continued upside, and we will continue moving like that. So Litecoin, what I've done also is I've just selected some of the highest market cap, or I guess the ones that are the most popular cryptocurrencies to go through here. I'll just be going through 4. They've all got very similar characteristics and similar way that they have moved. So following along from Bitcoin, we've had this impulse up, and we've had this massive drawdown, or not drawdown, sorry, this massive corrective pattern on the way down, with the break of the trend line being apparent here, and this being looking at our first impulse. Following from that first impulse, we have another pullback, with this being the trend continuation to the upside. We should see this move to 160, 170. There is the potential of this being one larger flat. So if I was to get rid of the lines here, and we were to consider this being an option, this is also possible, with the forecast being that this was to move up, break somewhere, or not break, but really come around this market point before returning back down, and then continuing going back up. That is the possibility of a potential play out, but you'd be guessing as to what would play out there. Currently, with the way that the market's played out, this is the most probable move. If market was to be impulsive and then have quite a large divergence from this point, then we can look to see, hey, this might actually move back down. But for now, continuation on Litecoin, with this being the pullback of interest and more upside to come. Moving along to Ethereum. Let's get it here. Okay. What we can see following from that impulse, the first thing I'd like to establish is this B wave, or this 3-wave structure that we see here. If we were to also draw that trend line with this being the lowest point, that would also fit. So we've got the potential of an ABC completed pattern, with, if you were to look at this being our first impulse, obviously it's not as impulsive as the Bitcoins or the Litecoin, but we can still consider that to be the first impulse up. Following that, we've got this sideways correction, and this being the continued upside from here. I don't expect this to return to the low. I do expect this to continue going upwards. There's obviously corrective patterns within this time frame here. The first one that's going to pop out to me is something like this. And then we do have this over here. You could look at this as an expanding flat or just an impulsive strike to the top side. If you wanted to look at this also, that's potentially valid with a move back down to the downside, but I don't think that that's as likely. Obviously, if you're wanting to get into the longs and you want to be safe with your money, wait for some more sideways with a pattern that you're a known pattern, something that you're going to be able to identify quite easily, and get into those longs. Awesome. So XRP was another one that I posted on my trading matrix profile on TradingView. I'll just pull that up here. Let me go to this. Okay. So XRP is what we had here. Very similar, looking at that long potential with a similar move to Bitcoin. From this point, it was actually at, this is considered a penny stock, so market looked to be at 0.195 when it was posted, and then it's moved up with a high peak of 0.255 with more upside to come. And we just move back to the chart itself. Okay. Again, very similar movements to what we've seen in Bitcoin. They've all been behaving fairly similar. So we've got that first impulse up, this long drawn out sideways correction from that massive move upwards. And then now we have this potential break of the trend line. If you were looking to trade this itself, there's a few options that I'm looking at the moment, because I would like to get into this one because it's a penny stock. The risk to reward, obviously it is risky, but that risk to reward is magnified with the small or the very cheap prices available. So what I'd like to see here is another move down to probably 0.21, 0.213. From here, we can look to see a completed correction, with this being our WXY up. We get a larger sideways, confirming that upside, and then we'd like to see a move to the top. If you could then apply Elliott waves theory to cryptocurrencies, which I believe you can, what we could expect to see is actually a re-break of the previous high, or another impulse to the upside, breaking the previous high of about $3, $3.30. Current prices, you're looking at about 0.2 to get in at 0.21, so move to 3.2. It's actually quite a large risk to reward. Probably about, if I was to do the math quickly in my head, 5, 10, so about 150%. Wait, 500, 1,500% returns on original investment from a move from about 0.2 to $3. That's what you could expect to see. So all Bitcoins are looking to the upside. You can expect to see more of that in the coming weeks to months, especially with the volatile or unknown nature of what's happening in the world. People would more than likely start looking for another place to secure their money, something away from governments and their regulations and what they're currently doing. That's it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed.